Space had always followed rules. Stars burned. Planets moved in wide, slow paths. Gravity pulled, but it never spoke. That changed the day the collider came online. Far from Earth, beyond busy trade routes and old battle zones, a group of alien engineers floated inside a vast ring of metal and light. The structure was larger than any human city. It curved around a dead star like a silver crown. Soft blue lines ran across its surface, glowing gently, as if the machine was breathing. To the aliens, this place was not a weapon. It was a dream made real. They called it the Gravity Collider. Its purpose was simple, at least to them. They wanted to understand how gravity truly worked. Not the weak pull between planets, but the deep force that shaped galaxies. They believed gravity was not just power. They believed it was balance. The lead engineer, a tall being with smooth gray skin and calm black eyes, watched the control field in silence. His name was Rael. He had spent most of his life building this machine. He had never held a weapon. He did not believe knowledge should be feared. When the final systems locked into place, a quiet signal moved through the station. The collider was ready. Rael lifted one long hand and gave the command to begin the first low test. No alarms sounded, no explosions followed. Space itself seemed to bend, just a little, like water touched by a finger. Far away, something else noticed. On Earth, deep under a mountain, human sensors screamed to life. Screens filled with numbers that made no sense. Gravity waves rolled through space, sharp and sudden. Satellites shifted in their paths. One deep space probe, old and forgotten, drifted off course for the first time in decades. Human scientists stared at the data in silence. Then someone whispered a word. Weapon within hours, world leaders were called into secure rooms. Military advisors stood beside scientists. Fear filled the air faster than facts. A massive structure near a dead star. Gravity behaving in ways never seen before. Energy levels that could tear planets apart. To humans it was clear, someone out there had built something terrible. A woman named Mira sat near the back of the room. She was not a soldier. She was an analyst. Her job was to listen, not shout. She watched as arguments grew louder. "If they can bend gravity," one general said, "they can crush Earth like dust. Or they could pull our moon out of orbit," another added. No one spoke of peaceful study. No one spoke of science. Fear had already chosen the story. By the end of the meeting, a decision was made. Humans would not attack yet. They would watch. A small observation fleet was prepared in silence. No flags. No messages. Just cold metal ships slipping into the dark. Back near the collider, Ralph felt something change. His instruments showed faint disturbances at the edge of the system. Tiny shadows moving where none should be. He felt a slow tightening in his chest. "There is activity," a junior engineer said. "Unidentified vessels." Distant. Hiding. Ralph frowned. No known species had been invited to this region. The collider was meant to be shared later, once it was proven safe. "They may be curious," Rael said. "Or afraid." The junior engineer tilted her head. "Afraid of knowledge?" Rael did not answer. The second test began. This time the collider pushed harder. Gravity rippled outward in perfect waves. Nearby dust bent into long, thin lines. Light itself slowed for a breath. At the edge of the system, a human probe was caught. For a moment it vanished from all tracking systems. Then it reappeared, spinning wildly, its path broken. In human command, silence turned into panic. "They touched our equipment!" someone shouted. That was a warning. "Or a test," another said. The room fell quiet. Mira leaned forward. "We don't know that," she said carefully. "The probe was old. The signal was weak. This could be a side effect." The general looked at her. "Side effects don't pull metal through space. Orders were given." Weapons were not fired, but preparations began. Designs were pulled from deep archives. Old theories about gravity control were dragged into the light. If aliens had built this, humans could too. Near the collider, Rahl stared at the data with growing concern. "The waves traveled farther than expected," he said. "We must reduce output." Before the order could be sent, an alarm pulsed softly. Something had entered the outer field. Not debris, not natural. A ship, small, silent, watching. Rahl felt a strange mix of emotions. Wonder, fear, and something else. "Recognition! Another thinking species," he whispered. The collider continued to hum, unaware that it had already changed the fate of two civilizations. Across the distance between stars, humans watched the glowing ring with tight jaws and steady hands. They did not see a dream. They saw a threat. And in the quiet pull of bending gravity, both sides waited for the next move. Fear moved fast among humans. By the time the observation fleet arrived near the distant star, world leaders were divided. Some demanded immediate attack. Others insisted on caution, but everyone agreed on one thing: the collider was too dangerous to ignore. Elias, a human engineer, stood on the deck of the command ship. He had studied gravity waves all his life. He understood how delicate they were. To him, the collider was more fascinating than terrifying. Still, he knew his opinion mattered little among generals and politicians who saw only the threat. "We should not assume they are hostile," Elias said to his commander. His voice was calm, precise. Gravity behaves strangely near massive structures. "We are seeing distortions, not attacks." The commander, a tall woman named Commander Vega, shook her head. "We cannot take chances. If this is a weapon, we must prepare." Elsewhere in the alien station, Rahl and his team sensed the human presence. Their scanners picked up small ships moving stealthily at the edge of the system. They were careful, almost afraid. But the aliens did not understand the caution. Curiosity, not fear, guided most of the crew. They had never hidden from another being. They had never considered that knowledge could be mistaken for threat. A young alien researcher named Taro floated near Rahl. His eyes reflected the soft blue glow of the collider. "They are close," Taro said quietly. "Why are they hiding?" Rahl did not answer immediately. He observed the small vessels moving among asteroids. "Perhaps they are afraid," he said finally. "Or they do not understand what we are doing." Taro's voice was almost a whisper. "We could send a message. Tell them it is safe." Rahl shook his head. "We cannot. We do not know their intentions. If we reach out, they may see it as weakness." On the human ships, Ilias studied the collider through advanced sensors. The readings were incredible. Gravity waves bending in perfect harmony, space curving softly, like a living organism. He tried to explain the beauty to the commander. "It is not just energy," he said. "It is knowledge. The way gravity moves here, it tells us things we have never known." Commander Vega did not respond. She watched the ships of her own fleet, ready to fire if anything moved toward them. The fear of being wrong haunted her every decision. The humans decided to send a drone closer. It moved slowly, careful to avoid detection. It passed near the outer rings of the collider. For a moment the crew held their breath. Then the drone's sensors recorded something unexpected. The collider responded to the drone, not aggressively, but it bent space slightly, almost as if it were studying the small vessel. Gravity rippled around it in patterns humans had never seen. Elias stared at the screens, fascinated. "It is alive," he whispered. His words were met with silence. Fear still clouded the room. Back at the collider, Rahl noticed the small vessel too. He did not know who they were, but he could see they were small, fragile, and not attacking. His mind considered possibilities. Could these beings understand? Could they approach knowledge without destroying it? Meanwhile, humans prepared their own experiment. Using the limited data they had captured, they built a small gravity device. They tested it on empty space, far from any planet. The device worked. It created tiny waves that could bend objects toward themselves. The military officers were both impressed and horrified. Elias argued against using it. "We are not ready. This is dangerous. We barely understand it." But others ignored him. Fear drives some humans faster than reason. They wanted proof that they could defend themselves. The experiment continued, creating ripples in empty space. To humans, it was a tool. To anyone else, it could be a warning. At the collider, Raul sensed changes in the field. The patterns of gravity waves shifted, not naturally. He frowned. "Something is interfering," he said. "We did not touch it." Taro's eyes widened. "Could it be the small ships?" Raul nodded slowly. "Possibly, but I do not understand their intent." For the next several hours, tension grew on both sides. Humans watched, prepared to act. Aliens monitored, ready to defend their creation. Neither side fully understood the other. Communication was impossible. Distance and fear made misunderstanding inevitable. Then, something happened that neither side could ignore. A human ship accidentally crossed too close to the collider. The gravity waves bent sharply, pulling the vessel into a strange path. The ship spun and shook. Alarm screamed. Crew members struggled to maintain control. Commander Vega gave orders. "Pull it back! Do not get too close!" The collider was not attacking. It reacted to presence, like an experiment observing the world. It did not understand weapons. It did not understand fear, but humans had built machines that could kill instantly, and that scared the aliens more than anything else. Raul watched the human ship. His heart, or what humans would call his heart, tightened. They are fragile. They could be destroyed by accident. Taro floated closer to the control panel. "We must send a message. We cannot let them destroy themselves." They had never sent messages to unknown species. Their history did not prepare them for this. Yet something inside him insisted. Knowledge should not be punished by fear. On the human side, preparations continued for possible attack. Weapons were loaded. Gravity experiments refined. Data collected. And all the while, Elias pleaded for caution. The more he studied the collider, the more he realized the danger was not from the aliens, but from misunderstanding. The hours passed. Each movement felt like a test. Each ripple in gravity made both sides anxious. Neither could predict the next reaction. Neither could trust the other. Night came and went on Earth, or what humans called night. The fleets remained in position. The aliens remained inside the glowing rings. Stars continued to burn, unknowing, unchanged, and yet space had never felt so tense. The collider hummed softly. A pattern of light ran across its rings. To the aliens, it was progress. To the humans, it was a threat. The first contact had already begun, though neither species realized it. Not through words, not through violence, but through fear, observation, and the strange pull of gravity. Raul wondered what these small beings would do next. Would they attack? Would they flee? Or could they understand what was in front of them? Elias wondered the same. Would the aliens destroy them? Could humans handle knowledge this dangerous without using it as a weapon? Neither had answers, and both were about to learn that fear travels faster than light, and understanding slower than the pull of a star. As the night stretched across human space and light bent gently in the collider's field, both species waited. Each watched the other. Each measured every movement, and in the quiet spaces between stars, the future began to take shape. The humans moved faster than the aliens expected. Inside the observation fleet, the small gravity device Elias had helped design was ready. It was crude, far from the elegance of the alien collider, but it could bend space in measurable ways. The device hummed softly as engineers adjusted the power output. Every second stretched, every movement careful. A single mistake could destroy the equipment, or worse, the ship itself. Commander Vega watched from the bridge, her face hard and unreadable. Her crew waited silently, listening to the soft hum, the faint ripple in space that marked the device's power. Fear and pride mixed together in the room. They had built something dangerous, something no one else in human history had ever made. Elias checked the instruments again. "We are ready. Minimal output. Test only in empty space. We must not risk damage to the planets or moons nearby." The device activated. A small gravity pulse spread outward. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, small asteroids in the region shifted slightly. The crew held their breath. "It works!" Elias whispered. The thrill of discovery shone in his eyes, mixed with fear. "It really works." Elsewhere, Ryle and Taro sensed the disturbance. Their instruments showed unusual waves entering the outer field of the collider. Rail frowned. "They are experimenting," he said. "But with what purpose?" Taro floated closer. "Could it be dangerous?" Ral nodded slowly. "Anything that bends gravity can be dangerous. But I do not sense hostility. Not yet." Human generals, however, did not see subtlety. To them, the collider's reaction to their device confirmed what they already feared. Aliens were testing humans, or worse, responding to human interference. They ordered additional scans and prepared countermeasures. Meanwhile, the human device grew more ambitious. Engineers wanted to see how far the gravity waves could stretch. They activated it again, stronger this time. Ripples extended into the void, reaching distances previously thought impossible for such a small machine. The effect was immediate. A distant moon cracked along a faint line. Pieces of rock drifted apart slowly, floating in the empty darkness. Panic spread among the human officers. They realized the device was more powerful than anyone had predicted. Commander Vega slammed her fist on the console. "Stop it!" Elias quickly powered down the device. His hands shook. "We underestimated the effects," he admitted. "We barely controlled it." The aliens noticed the shift, too. Ral's scanners showed the moon cracking. "They can manipulate gravity," he said softly. "Far more than we assumed." Taro floated closer, eyes wide. "They could destroy worlds with this." Ral nodded slowly. "They could, but they have not." "Not yet." Fear and misunderstanding grew on both sides. The humans began debating whether to use the device as a weapon preemptively. The alien engineers debated whether to shut down the collider or try to communicate. Neither species trusted the other, and each action, however small, escalated tension. One human officer, younger than the rest, spoke up. "If we show them our device now, maybe they will understand we are not harmless. Maybe it will make them cautious." Commander Vega shook her head. "Or it will make them attack first." On the collider, Ryle and Taro began discussing what to do. They had never considered diplomacy with a species they had never met. Knowledge had always been shared openly, and curiosity had never led to fear. Now it did. "We must stabilize the field," Ryle said. "If they continue experimenting, our collider could malfunction." Taro nodded. "But if we interfere, they may think we are attacking." Both sides moved in careful circles, testing and observing. Time became measured by pulses and ripples, by calculations of gravity bending and light shifting. No one dared make a sudden move. Then, an accident occurred. A human ship moved too close to the collider. Gravity waves pulled it in slightly, spinning it like a toy in a child's hand. Alarm screamed inside the human fleet. Crew members fought to control the vessel. Commander Vega barked orders, but fear had taken root. Elias realized what had happened. "They are not attacking," he shouted. "It's the collider reacting to presence." But fear drowned reason. The human fleet prepared weapons ready for retaliation. At the same time, alien engineers braced for possible sabotage. Neither side understood the other's intent. The situation escalated. Gravity waves bent unpredictably, pulled by human experiments and alien reactions. Stars and moons in nearby systems were unaffected, but the tension in space was like a storm waiting to break. Raal made a decision. "We must send a signal," he said. "We cannot wait for them to destroy themselves." Taro looked at him. "What do we say?" "They may not understand." Raal paused. "We will show them. Not words, but action. We will stabilize the field. We will not harm them." The alien engineers worked quickly. Gravity flows were adjusted, energy released carefully to counter the disturbances caused by human experiments. Waves of space bent gently back into the expected paths. The human ship that had been pulled spun slowly back into orbit. Human sensors recorded the changes and analyzed them, trying to understand. Elias felt awe. He had never seen anything like this. The collider was not a weapon. It was a machine that could teach, and it had just taught humans a lesson in restraint and respect. Commander Vega, though, remained cautious. "We cannot trust them yet. They could destroy us if they wanted." Elias shook his head. "Or they could teach us to handle power responsibly. We are seeing the difference between knowledge and fear." On the alien side, Raal considered humans in a new way. "They are not like other species we have encountered," he said. "Their minds are quick but dangerous when fear guides them, yet they also have restraint. Perhaps we misjudged them." Taro floated quietly, absorbing the lesson. "It is rare," he said softly, "for a species to face power and choose caution." The hours passed, the human fleet remained on alert, but weapons were not fired. The aliens stabilized their collider and watched carefully. Communication was still impossible, but understanding had begun. Finally, Elias addressed the fleet. "We have learned something important. The collider is not a weapon. Our fears were based on assumption, not fact. We must approach carefully. We must learn." Commander Vega did not speak. Her eyes scanned the dark space beyond, wary and calculating. Yet even she understood something had shifted. Humans had survived the first test, not by destroying others, but by holding back. In the distance, the collider pulsed gently. Blue lines of energy ran across its rings. To the aliens, it was progress. To the humans, it was proof that the universe held more than threats and weapons. And in that silence, between fear and understanding, the next chapter of human-alien contact began. One of discovery, tension, and the quiet lesson that power, when respected, could build bridges instead of walls. Time stretched across the empty space between stars. Humans and aliens watched each other cautiously, neither moving too close nor speaking directly. The collider pulsed gently, as if breathing, while humans adjusted their sensors to record every fluctuation. The silence was heavy with uncertainty, but also with potential. Elias studied the data again. "The collider is stabilizing," he said. "The ripples caused by our experiments are settling." Commander Vega, standing behind him, frowned. "Do we trust them now?" Elias shook his head. "Not fully, but they have shown restraint. They did not destroy us or our ships. That is something." He looked out at the glowing rings of the collider, marveling at the elegant dance of energy and gravity. "They are not attacking. They may not even know we are here for study." On the alien side, Raal and Taro were debating the same questions. Taro floated near the control panel, eyes fixed on the human fleet. "They can create gravity disturbances. We can sense it. Should we act?" Arcade Days was steady. "Not yet. They have power, yes, but not intent to harm. We must show them we can cooperate without misunderstanding." Taro tilted his head. "How do we do that?" Raal paused, considering. "We cannot speak directly. They may not understand, but we can act. We can stabilize the collider in response to their experiments, carefully, without harm. That will be our message." The aliens worked quickly. Gravity fields were adjusted to counteract the small human device. Waves of space bent back towards stability. The human ships recorded the subtle changes, analyzing every fluctuation. Elias realized the aliens were communicating in their own language, patterns of energy and force. He spoke to Commander Vega. They are responding, not with weapons, but with balance. Vega's eyes narrowed. Are we sure? We cannot take chances. Elias nodded. We are not sure, but this is a sign of intelligence, not aggression. Meanwhile, human engineers debated what to do next. Some wanted to test the device again, to see if humans could control such power under pressure. Others argued restraint, warning that a mistake could provoke the aliens unintentionally. Elias spoke for caution. We have already seen their reaction. They did not attack. That is enough proof we should study, not destroy. The humans sent a second drone closer, measuring the collider's response without activating their gravity device. For hours, it hovered near the outer rings, recording every pulse and distortion. The aliens noticed, but did not intervene aggressively. Instead, they monitored carefully, their own instruments calculating every human movement. Taro floated beside Real. They are clever, he said. They could destroy our collider easily if they wanted, yet they do not. Raoul nodded. Caution is not weakness. Perhaps they understand restraint. Perhaps that is their strength. Elias watched the collider through the drone feed. The beauty of the rings, the way energy flowed through the structure made him pause. We could learn so much from this, he whispered. Not just about gravity, but about thinking differently. Commander Vega turned away, scanning the dark void outside. We still cannot trust them completely. If they choose to attack, we must be ready. Elias looked at her, eyes filled with urgency. And if they choose to teach us, we must be ready for that too. The hours passed. Human crews worked quietly, noting patterns and waves. Alien engineers adjusted fields, countering disturbances without aggression. Gradually, understanding grew without words. Actions became communication. Caution became dialogue. Then a new challenge arose. A minor malfunction occurred in the collider. A small sector of the energy ring flickered unpredictably. Gravity waves twisted near the center, threatening to overload the system. Aliens monitored closely, their previous adjustments only partially containing the anomaly. Rail's voice was calm but firm. We need someone near the core to stabilize it manually. It is too precise for remote adjustments. Taro's eyes widened. The gravity there could tear a body apart. It is too dangerous. Raoul considered the humans watching from afar. Perhaps we can invite them. They understand gravity differently. Their technology is crude but adaptable. We could work together. The message was sent through the subtle modulation of energy waves. Humans detected it as patterns within the collider's natural fluctuations. Elias recognized the code almost immediately. They are offering help, he said. The realization shocked the human crew. Aliens had never invited outsiders before. Never. Commander Vega hesitated. Do we risk sending someone in? Elias nodded. We must. This is an opportunity to show we can cooperate. A volunteer came forward. Mara, a young engineer, had studied gravity control extensively. She suited up in a reinforced exosuit designed to withstand extreme force. The ship's crew guided her through calculations and safety protocols. Every movement was precise, measured. Meanwhile, the alien engineers adjusted the collider fields, stabilizing them to the limits of their instruments. Raoul watched the suit's path through the outer rings, careful to avoid any fatal interference. Mara entered the dangerous zone. Inside the exosuit, she felt the immense pull of gravity bending space around her. It twisted and stretched, almost alive. Sensors indicated forces strong enough to crush the unprotected body. But the human design held it. Mara moved slowly, manually adjusting small conduits and stabilizers. Each adjustment sent signals back to the alien engineers who recalculated in real time. Hours passed. Outside, both species watched silently. Every ripple in gravity was a heartbeat. Every vibration a message. Finally, Mara reached the core. She adjusted the final stabilizer and released a counterwave of precise gravity energy. The collider hummed steadily. Blue lines flowed evenly. Energy balanced perfectly. The danger was over. On the human fleet, cheers were quiet but sincere. Mara returned, battered but alive. Elias embraced her, relief flooding him. On the alien station, Real and Taro observed with wonder. They risked themselves, Taro said, and they succeeded. Raal nodded. Humans are strange. They are fragile, yet bold, powerful, yet restrained. Perhaps we misjudged them. In the calm that followed, both species realized a new truth. Power alone did not define strength. Restraint, understanding, and careful action could build trust even without words. Commander Vega finally spoke. We will continue to watch, but we have seen that they are not mere threats. We must learn. Elias nodded, looking at the glowing rings of the collider. And we will learn together. If we can continue to choose restraint over fear, perhaps there is hope for us both. The collider pulsed steadily, a living symbol of balance. The humans had seen its power, touched it, and survived without using force. Aliens had extended trust without surrendering control. Space was quiet again. Stars continued to burn. The tension remained, but a fragile understanding had begun. And in that quiet, both humans and aliens knew the next steps would be crucial. Every action mattered. Every choice had weight. But for the first time, both sides saw a path forward, not through fear or weapons, but through cooperation and understanding. The quiet after the stabilization did not last long. Humans and aliens had both seen what could happen when power was misused, but the universe did not wait. Gravity pulses continued to ripple through the collider's rings, subtle at first, then more noticeable as the alien engineers pushed the limits of their design to understand it fully. Elias and Mara were back on the human command ship. Sensors filled the room with data, showing not only the collider's stability, but also faint energy fluctuations farther out in space. Humans had not caused them, but they were close enough to study. The team realized that gravity could bend not only objects, but information itself. The implications were staggering. We have barely scratched the surface, Elias said, eyes wide as he scrolled through the readings. The collider is not just energy. It's a language, and it is speaking to us. Commander Vega leaned against the console, arms crossed. And if we misinterpret it, we could start a war by accident. That is exactly the danger. But we also have the chance to understand in ways no human has ever imagined. Meanwhile, Raal and Taro monitored the same data from the alien station. Taro's eyes, usually calm, reflected worry. "They are learning quickly," he said. And their tools are crude, but adaptable. They could harm us if they chose. They have not chosen to harm. They adapt, yes, but with restraint. That is important. We must remember it. Hours later, a new test began. This time, humans sent a drone into the innermost section of the collider. The alien engineers watched closely. Raal had adjusted safety protocols and energy flows to minimize risk. Taro observed the drone's path carefully, noting every bend in space. The drone recorded patterns that humans could barely comprehend. Elias analyzed the data in real time. The gravity waves seemed to move with intention, responding not only to energy, but to subtle patterns of presence. It was as if the collider itself understood the humans in a way they could not yet understand it. Elias whispered to Mara, who floated beside him in zero gravity. It reacts differently to different shapes, different masses, even to intention. Then it knows we are trying to help. It senses restraint. Commander Vega's voice was sharp. Help? Or test? We cannot assume. Elias shook his head. Not every reaction is hostile. Sometimes intelligence is simply cautious. Meanwhile, the alien engineers debated how much to show. They could demonstrate full control over gravity, but that might frighten the humans. Instead, they allowed the drone to explore, revealing only patterns, not raw power. Each pulse, each wave, was carefully balanced to teach without endangering it. Hours stretched into days. Humans studied. Aliens observed. Slowly, understanding grew. The first real bridge between species was forming, not through words, but through action and measured response. Then, disaster threatened. A minor miscalculation on the human side caused the drone to emit a small energy spike. It was accidental, tiny, but enough to ripple through the collider. Gravity waves bent sharply, energy fluctuated unpredictably, and a small sector of the collider's rings threatened to overload. Alarmed, Raoul shouted over the communication systems of the station. "Field is unstable! Adjust immediately!" Taro's eyes widened. Someone must enter the zone. Humans understood immediately. The alien engineers had stabilized the collider many times from afar. Now they needed hands inside the dangerous field. Mara volunteered once more, preparing her exosuit. This time, the forces were stronger. Sensors showed she could be crushed if a single calculation failed. Elias assisted, running final adjustments. You must move slowly. Every step matters. Do not rush. Mara nodded. I understand. I will do it. She entered the unstable field, every movement precise. Gravity bent unpredictably, forcing her to adjust constantly. The collider seemed almost alive, reacting to her presence in ways she had not anticipated. Instruments beeped warnings, but she ignored all except the essential data. Inside the core, energy lines twisted around her, threatening to tear the suit. Mara countered each pulse manually, using the limited controls to stabilize conduits. The alien engineers offered guidance, sending subtle pulses of information through the field, teaching her which pathways were safe. Hours passed. Outside, both humans and aliens watched tensely. Every ripple in space, every light pulse was a sign of life, of action, of risk. If Mara failed, it could mean destruction. Finally, she reached the final stabilizer. She adjusted it carefully and released a balancing pulse. The collider hummed steadily, blue lines of energy flowing smoothly again. The danger was over. Cheers erupted quietly on the human fleet. Elias hugged Mara, relief flooding both of them. Commander Vega allowed herself a small nod of approval. Even she understood the significance of what had happened. Raoul observed from the alien station, calm but amazed. They faced the unknown and survived. They understood the balance. Taro floated beside him, eyes wide. They are different. Fragile, yet capable of incredible restraint. We misjudged them before. For the first time, both species understood the lesson clearly. Strength did not come from the ability to destroy, but from the choice not to. Power alone was meaningless without wisdom and restraint. Humans had risked themselves and succeeded, teaching aliens what they had already suspected, that humans could be a dangerous species, but one that could choose cooperation over conflict. The collider pulsed steadily once more, a symbol of balance and understanding. Humans and aliens had survived the test, not by fighting, but by working together and respecting the unknown. Both sides realized that restraint, courage, and intelligence were just as important as raw power. Commander Vega spoke finally. We will continue to observe and learn. But we have seen that they are not mere threats. They have shown restraint, intelligence, and courage. That is more important than any weapon. Elias looked at the glowing rings of the collider, filled with awe. And we will continue to learn. From them, from the machine, and from ourselves. Raoul and Taro watched the humans from afar, understanding that the bridge they had built today was fragile but real. Knowledge had been shared without violence. Understanding had grown without words. And for the first time the future felt possible, balanced and hopeful. Stars burned quietly, the collider hummed steadily, and the universe waited, watching what would happen next. The quiet that followed the stabilization lasted longer than anyone expected. Humans and aliens had survived the test, learned from one another, and discovered that restraint could be more powerful than force. Yet space held no promises. Stars continued to burn, planets moved in their orbits, and the gravity collider hummed steadily, as if reminding all who watched that knowledge and power were one and the same. Elias and Mara returned to their ship, tired but alive. The human fleet remained on alert, but tension had eased. The events of the past days had shown that aliens could be observed, understood, and even engaged without the immediate threat of violence. Yet the human leaders knew that caution was still necessary. Commander Vega walked the deck, speaking quietly with Elias. "We have learned much," she said, "but we cannot forget how dangerous this all could have been." Elias nodded. "Danger will always be there, but we also know something now. They are not monsters. They are intelligent. They make decisions carefully. They respect caution. That is what makes them different from a threat." Across the distance on the alien station, Raoul observed the humans quietly. Taro floated beside him. "They are remarkable," Taro said. "Fragile, yet capable of courage beyond our understanding." Raoul nodded. "And they chose restraint when they could have acted recklessly. They could have destroyed the collider or themselves. Instead, they learned. That is the key." For the first time, the alien engineers considered humans not only as observers but as partners in understanding. The collider, once a solitary machine of study, could now become a shared symbol of cooperation between two species. But that path would require continued care, understanding, and trust. Humans and aliens began to communicate in small ways, not with words but with patterns, signals, and careful actions. Each movement of energy, each modulation of gravity waves, became a form of dialogue. Slowly, the fear that had gripped both species began to fade, replaced by cautious respect. Elias and Mara observed this silent communication, marveling at its depth. "They are teaching us to listen without words," Mara said, "and we are learning it." Commander Vega remained wary, but allowed the observation to continue. She understood that patience could achieve what weapons could not. The fleet maintained its position, observing every ripple, every pulse from the collider. Human engineers continued to record and analyze, learning not only about gravity but about the aliens themselves. On the alien side, Raoul reflected on the lessons learned. "Humans are dangerous, yes," he said to Taro, "but they are also wise. The choice to refrain from destruction shows understanding. That is something even we must respect." Taro tilted his head. "Perhaps restraint is the true measure of power." Days turned into weeks. The collider continued its work, now with humans observing, learning, and sometimes assisting in subtle ways. Both species had discovered that cooperation allowed them to achieve far more than fear or conflict ever could. The humans had learned not only to survive, but to engage responsibly. The aliens had learned that intelligence could exist in a species that was different, unpredictable, and capable of remarkable self-control. One evening, as the light from a distant star bathed the rings of the collider in soft blue, Elias reflected on what had happened. Humans had arrived expecting a weapon. They had feared destruction and planned for preemptive action. Yet by choosing patience, observation, and careful action, they had learned a far greater lesson. The collider was not a weapon. It was a teacher, and humans, through restraint and courage, had learned to listen. Mara floated beside him. "Do you think they understand us now?" she asked. Elias nodded slowly. "I think they do. And I think we understand them as well." Commander Vega joined them. She did not speak immediately, simply observing the gentle hum of the collider and the glow of the distant star. Finally, she said, "This is the future. Not a war, not a fight, but understanding. If we choose wisely, humans can be more than survivors. We can be partners in knowledge." Across the distance, Raoul and Taro observed the human ships. The alien engineers had come to a new realization. Intelligence, restraint, and courage defined a species as much as raw power. Humans had survived not by weapons, but by choosing when to act and when to hold back. That choice made them formidable in a way few species could understand. As the weeks passed, the collider pulsed steadily, a symbol of balance and learning. Humans documented, recorded, and carefully engaged. Aliens continued their work, now with the quiet knowledge that the humans could be trusted, at least cautiously. Knowledge, when respected, could unite rather than destroy. In the end, both species had changed. Humans had learned restraint, patience, and the value of observing before acting. Aliens had learned that strength could be measured by understanding rather than fear, and the Gravity Collider remained, a living reminder of the power of knowledge, cooperation, and the careful balance between caution and courage. Stars burned quietly in the void. The collider hummed steadily, ripples of gravity spreading through space, gentle and precise. Humans and aliens watched, learned, and waited. Both species understood, in their own ways, that the greatest weapon is not the one that destroys, but the one that teaches restraint, understanding, and respect. And in that quiet harmony, the universe seemed just a little larger, a little wiser, and full of possibilities for those who chose to learn rather than fight.